Hi everyone, Dave Hurtner here from Fisher Flying Products. Been a while since we talked. I have been almost 6 months, actually a little over 6 months since I posted my last video, and as you can see in the background here, we have been super busy working on the Archon project.
This is Fisher Flying Products. I'm Dave Hurtner. Welcome to the Nest. Our video newsletters provide weekly insight into building and flying our 15 wooden aircraft designs. Polini Motori of Italy is a gracious sponsor of our channel.
Polini's the manufacturer of the Thor 303 DS.
Cozy Carb Ice Prevention Systems is a proud sponsor of this channel as well. Please take the time to watch our videos to the end, as this assists us in the metrics that YouTube uses to rate our channel. Hit the like button if you feel that the content is worthy. We invite you to subscribe to our channel by clicking on the subscribe button and hitting the bell so that you are notified whenever we post our newsletters.
What you see behind me is the two-seater. Lots of room in the cockpit. And also, we've been working in the shop here, I'll swing around, on integrating the 912 IS into this airframe, and we're going to fly it. We've got it registered there for the Ultralight here in Canada, and we are just about ready to start. So it's been a wild 6 months since Oshkosh. We came back, we put took the engine out. We had a little bit of damage from travel that we had to repair in this airframe. And then went to town, and we've built the engine mount for it. As you can see, we have integrated that into this airframe and designed it again for the next airframe. We have had to completely plumb for fuel, wing tanks. As you can see up on the mezzanine there, we've got the wings, and we've had to build wing tanks for it. And this one here had cockpit work that had to be done. So we've got a lovely cockpit set up here. We've got a few switches and whatnot yet to go, but we did switch on the other day, and the IS computers fired up no problem. And so today we were putting oil in it and burping it and getting it ready for its first start. So that's going to be exciting. We're going to film that, and we'll have that available. But just rest assured, I'm still kicking. We're still going. My partner and I have every intent to get this airplane to market. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, 60, 70-hour weeks in the shop. We had the designer of the aircraft, Giorgos Iliopoulos, came over to Canada and stayed with me for 3.5 months working. And we have made every part for this aircraft from scratch on our CNC router, and it went together very well. We were very pleased. It is very stout aircraft. It is very well built. We've made improvements in the use of the materials for it, the gauging of the materials. We've made upgrades to hardware that is available, and we've North Americanized the supply chain. So right now we're working on wing components. We've got the forming blocks all made here, and it's exciting. We have really had an education. I built an aluminum airplane before, but getting it and bringing it to market and making it a kit and making it available and making it intuitive to put together is a lot of work, and it's very satisfying work, and we're plugging away at it. So just wanted to let you know that I'm around here full time working away, and we are soon to fly the prototype Number 2, again with the 912 IS in it, 100 horsepower. And we're well along with producing the validation. I wouldn't call it a prototype, but it's a validation build of the DXFs and of the data that the original designer brought to us. So there you are. I'm going to throw in 2 Algy Yates catch-up videos right now, so please be patient with me. I've got some. I'm like 50 videos behind with him, so we're going to be posting those. I know I've said that before, but we had some issues with our software for making the videos. Still working through that right now. And it makes it a little tough. I can't record right now in my studio, so we're plugging away at getting that fixed. And if not, then we'll have to do something a little bit different. But we're getting back in the saddle again, and hopefully you enjoy the video. So take it away, Algy.
Hi, and welcome to the channel. In this video, I make a routing jig used for making up a series of components like these. So let's see how I make it. This jig that I'm about to create is to make up the nose rib sections, the very front rib bit here, to go onto the front of the forward ribs. There's 34 of them, I believe, that are required. So again, like everything where I've got several to build, I like to create a jig, and this is going to be quite a fast way of making these components up. Rather than where I've just got a couple to make up, I'll just do a tracing and go through from there. So just going to go and draw around the outline in the normal manner that you would sort of trace. I'm using the drafting copy paper. So just a bit of carpet tile adhesive. I'm just going to give this a quick spray to help mount this on. This is the advantage of the copy paper, is it is moisture stable. So here's my my bench guillotine. It's rather aged. I made it up myself. I would not like to say how many years ago, but it's ideal for this type of work. It'll cut up to sort of 14 gauge steel and up to about 12 gauge aluminium alloy. There we have it. We've sort of nicked around the edge there, not too much to file off. This section here I will cut out with a normal hacksaw, just cut down into the corners there, but I'll put the soft jaws back into the vise before I do that. Okay, so I'm just going to run the drill through here, through the first hole. It's a 3.3, and I will put in one of my little pegs which I've made from a stub of a 3.3. It should fit just fairly nicely like that. That will hold that in place. Just deburr the back. Let's there we go. Just deburr the back, and then I will that will fit on there. Do the same now. Here, drill through. Now I can put the other peg into that, and then what I'll do is, after I put the two pegs in, I'll draw around and I'll just cut that out roughly with a jigsaw just to get that roughly to shape, and then we can carry on from there. There's my MDF block with the aluminium template on it with the 2 pegs. They'll be glued in permanently at the right height once I've got that sorted out, but to start off with I'm just going to get this to shape using the sander. So just needs finishing off now carefully with a file to make sure that these corners are nice and square and straight. The metal template used to make the block, placed it in the centre of this piece here. I've drawn around it, trying to get a sort of fairly even clearance of about an inch all the way around. And I'm going to just cut this out with a jigsaw, and this will be sort of the main base section. Cut out the centre of here, around that, marked this base plate, drilled it and countersunk it to take screws. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to bond these and screw them, the blocks together to get things moving forwards. So just going to mix up some resin. So it's going to be bonded and screwed. See this in time lapse. So you saw me bond this piece of MDF to the base section of MDF and our central piece. What I've done off camera is I've bonded on some 1/8 inch birch ply onto the top face here, leaving a whole section there. I've just sanded this to match the top plate, and I'm going to go around here and just route this back to the shape of the hole that we have in the top section. I've routed around the hole here, so this is now the same shape as the bit underneath. The next task is just to seal the wood with a bit of varnish. These lines are corresponding with the straight sections on here. Wood surface sealed, and I've just put a piece of wood along the bottom here that will just help hold everything in the vise for when when this is in use. So I'll do that to start off with. I'm just going to mix up some epoxy just to hold these pins in. So this is just a fast setting epoxy. So a bit of plywood, the thickness that we're going to be using. Make sure that's flush. Same this side. Just wipe a squeeze out away from that. And we'll let that cure. And then we'll go through and we'll make a test piece and see how we get on. Okay then, so the process, I've cut a piece of ply using the template. I would just normally, when we go into production, I would cut a whole strip and then just cut these off accordingly and nest them together in various forms and use a jigsaw to cut those into sections like this. I've put a mark on there for the first hole to be drilled. So there's the first hole. can put this onto this drilling jig now, along with my my template, and drill through there. So now that's got the 2 holes to match the template. So next step, our piece of wood that we've just drilled, push down onto the 2 locating pegs, and now I'll just go around it with the router. Bearing in mind that this isn't the aircraft grade plywood. Now the marks which I put on top here allow me to draw the lines which will allow me to just clean up the corners where the router can't quite get in. We can take our piece out, give that a light sand. As I said, this isn't aircraft grade plywood, so it's a little bit hairier. And chips out a little bit, but there we go. So just a little bit of a sand. And there's one item completed. So compare that to our template, and literally just got that little bit in the corner there to take out with a square file or something like that, or and I can create a whole bundle of them all to the same standard. There we go. Hi and welcome to the channel. In this video I show you how I fit the hinges to the tail plane. So let's see how I get on. Looking at all the hinges, we've got 3 hinges on the elevators, 2 3-inch ones fitted outboard, 6-inch one fitted in the middle, and then we have 3 hinges fitted to the rudder, one at the bottom, one very close to the top, and one near the sort of centre position on the hinge line, as you'd normally expect. Some aircraft could be slightly different positioning. Again, you know, looking at the Mini-Max that Dennis is building, the upper hinge isn't right at the very top of the vertical stabilizer, which is unusual, I'd say, but that's how they've come across and decided to do the job. The next stage is going to be marking these positions out on the actual control surfaces, and then the height of them to allow for the offset of the pin. So as the pin is offset to one side, we need to offset this cut here for that so that the pin is on the center line. So I'll make a slight adjustment for that. Marked out the hinge positions. 1/4 inch in from the end of this block here is where the end of the hinge will go. It's 3 inches long, so I've marked that. And then 1/2 inch in from each end I've put a mark. They'll be carried up and intersect with the mark that's going to go to the back of that with 3/8 of an inch back to put the centre line for this area. This one will be very slightly further out than 3/8. It'll be 1/2 inch, still within the meat of the hinge, and that's to allow for the stay to go up to the fin. Here I've worked out a section going around here in line with the hinge where it'll be drilled with a 3/16 hole, and that takes the other stay. It's not shown on the plan exactly where that hole should be or where that hole should be, but looking at it you can sort of make up a fair assumption. They actually have it on the drawing sort of out here where it wouldn't actually bite into the rudder, into the hinge at all, which seems a bit mad because that means you'd have to have yet another hole, and yet they don't show that. So I'm making the calculation. I can go back into the hinge itself and still have enough land. That'll be safe, and it does two jobs in one. Saves the weight of a bolt, if nothing else, if I've got that bit wrong, or is the correct position. It's, as I said, not shown on the plan very well. In the centre here, sort of similar sort of issues. All these are going to be 832 type bolts going through, AN bolts. We've got a 6-inch hinge, so we've got 1, 2, 3 of those. But this point here, we've got the elevator horn, which should be 3 inches out from the centre line, so exactly on the end of the sort of hinge, and it's got an L section. It doesn't show very clearly on the plan which way that L section goes. It sort of alludes, depending on which drawing and view you look at, that it actually goes to the inboard side, in which case I will use the forward bolt, because 2 bolts holding that in position on the elevator itself. I'll use the forward bolt hole of that to hold the hinge. So I'm not going to drill that yet because I haven't got the material at hand or made up the elevator horn, so I'll actually drill that hole later. As you can see, this is all blocked out with a bit of 1/4 inch wood. That's to set up the 1/4 inch gap as stated on the plan. So next step for me is I'm going to take these clamps off, measure back the 3/8 or 1/2 inch for this one, mark so we know where the holes go, and then I'm going to measure up and set up the height, which you'll see in a bit. So that's drawn the length of the hinges. I'm just going to draw a centre line as a marker so I can actually use that. So I'm just using my little centre line gauge. So there we have the extreme. There's the centre line. That is where the centre of the hinge should end up. So if we've got to look at it in close, we'll have the pin lined up with that, and we'll have our slot below that. And I'm just going to do the calculation on what the width is of this, half it, and that will tell me what the offset is for the lower line for cutting, and then the upset for that, so I can cut the second bit of the slot so this will slot in. Remember, I'm really after the hinge being a tight fit, requiring a bit of force to push it in. Now I don't want it slack, but then I don't want it so tight that I'm actually having to sort of like almost batter it in. If you're having to push really, really hard to get it in, you're putting a lot of force on the wood to split the wood, and that's something we don't want, to have force already there, which will put stress outside the hinge line for when we're actually flying, because that will induce a cracking. If anything at all, we're slightly better off having the gap very slightly too big and have the clamping force of the bolts actually pulling the wood down onto it. Less chance of having a split crack going along the grain span wise. Hopefully this setup sort of shows what I've got. I've got a piece of Paxlin here. It just so happens that it's perfectly set. I needed the hinge to be offset from the centre line 3/32, 2.4 millimeters offset, and with this piece of Paxlin it's set just perfectly for the lower cut. I'm using just this sort of reciprocating type saw. This is what I've used before. Quite a narrow blade on it. Not the fastest cutting blades, but these work quite well. Just to go in. Now then, the thing I do need to do before I get really started is I put a paint mark on the blade, so I know how deep I want to cut. So I want to cut no deeper than that, so I've got something to see. You could use tape for doing the same thing, and we're just cutting, and by keeping the blade flat on the Paxlin means I'm going to drive in nice and straight. And then to get the second cut up, I'm actually going to shim this Paxlin up using a thin piece of card. So, a bit of time lapse. Now to clean out this slot, I've just got an old hacksaw blade. I've cut a sort of a hook on the end. It's a bit like what we used to call a skin knife. That's slightly offset, that hook is slightly bent. So that allows me to force in and drag out any nasties which we get trapped up in the corner there. So all the hinges are now fitted. They're, if we get it straight, they're just a firm fit. They're not super tight. There we go. That's how tight they are. So got to keep the hinges in this orientation. So when I cut the slots in the elevator, to make sure I've got the top, and the top are kept corresponding, although I could swap them around at this moment in time. So I'm going to pilot drill the tailplane, well, all the hinge bolt holes and that, with a brad style drill bit, 4mm, and then from there I can put the hinges in and put a marker down with a standard 4mm drill, and then everything can be enlarged to the correct sizes. So we'll see how we get on with this. Holes pilot drilled, 4mm with the brad bit, because it makes a nice clean cut in the wood. Now I'm just going to use a standard 4mm drill bit in a hand drill, because all I'm after doing is creating a mark. I've put the gap pieces in and clamped it, checked everything's lined up including the centre line, and this is just going to allow me to put a mark on each of the hinges, ready to go for enlarging to their final sizes, which is 4.2mm for the 8/32s and 4.8mm for the 3/16 AN3s. So the central hinge at the front, that hole there is the pilot hole for the tailplane horizontal stabilizer mounting bolt, and that's got to be drilled out yet to 4.8mm, which would leave not much land. So I'm going to drill that out to 4.8, but then I'm going to just enlarge things around here so it sort of skips around rather than actually putting it into this place. There won't be any meat there, so I'll take that out so this hinge will fit around that bolt on the grounds the flange dimension here is greater than that from the fissure. So now all the holes in the wood have been drilled out to their finished size, and all the hinges have had their pilot holes drilled through, undersized. So now it's just a case of me taking the drill here, feeling it down onto the metal, and I have a chuck tight, feeling it down onto the metal, and I can just finish drill the metal. Stick the screw in, which is going to be slightly tight. There is a little bit of excess metal on the back face there. See if I can show you. Just there, that little piece of metal there will be removed, and then I'll round the corners of the hinges. Okay, corners rounded on the hinges and deburred. That section removed where it was protruding through the back rear spar, also through the spar on the elevator. These are now over a gram lighter than the full hinge that we started with. So every little bit counts. I just think it looks a lot neater having the rounded corners, and they're not doing us any good, so might, having them sharp, it's not doing us any good, so we might as well remove them. Okay, let's get this lot together. I think my next thing to do is I'm going to just put the bolts in, or screws in, to see how we do for movement. I've got a feeling I'll only need to take off a very small amount, or a relatively small radius, off the edge of the stabilizer and elevator, not the huge great chunk it sort of shows on the drawing on the plan. So I'm just going to round these edges so that the covering hasn't got a really sharp corner to go around. I'll double check though that I've got the movement, so I'll do that in a moment. Okay, so that's the horizontal stabilizer rounded and the elevator rounded. I'm going to call it enough for enough today. It's hot and humid. Not sure what will be in the next video. We might look at the rudder, fin and rudder. That should be finished. I might not bother videoing that too much, as it's very much the same procedures I've already carried out.
Thanks again for watching. We try hard to bring you interesting content each week. To help us out, Please like and share our videos if you feel the content is worthy. To receive the latest info from Fisher Flying Products, click the subscribe button and ring the bell. See you next time in the nest.